Welcome to the first episode of the Nerd's Nook Tavern. There is no better place to be than right here, ladies and gentlemen. We are going to start our very first episode with something that everyone should know in case of a zombie apocalypse, and that is how to make your own alcohol. We're going to start with one of the simplest alcohols to make, which has been made for over 2,000 years. We're going to start by making some mead. So, this is actually what we're going for here, a nice, clear amber liquid. This was produced about 6 months ago. It is a nice cranberry orange flavored with a base of purely honey, water, and yeast. We're going to get into that though later. First off, though, our ingredients this time are going to include water, yeast, honey, but we're going to change it up a little bit. We're going to actually make ourselves a dark chocolate peppermint mead.
It is not at the faucet, just to
That's
let you
fine.
know. Okay.
All right. Well, I forgot to tell you, we're actually presented by the Nerd Network. If you want to find us on YouTube, you can just search up Nerd Network. Number one thing must be sanitized, whether it's you or your materials that you're using to create your mead. Affiliate links will be posted down below for everything we are doing here today. We're going to start by washing our hands. We are next going to start with just under an ounce of star sand. This is a great way to sanitize anything you're going to use. And when I say sanitize, I mean anything that's going to come in contact with your mead, whether it's your fermentation vessel, your mixing spoon, everything has to be done and sanitized. Now here's the deal. This is going to take a minute to sanitize. We are starting out with a 2.5 to 3 gallon fermenter. We have our giant mixing spoon that Tiamat, our camera girl, purchased for us, as well as anything, like I said, anything that touches our mead, including our bung and our airlocks and our lid. And since this is a conical, it also has a spigot on the bottom that we are going to let use to sanitize. And we will be back in 1 minute. So other than honey and yeast and water, what we're going to do is we're going to toast some organic cacao nibs and we're going to steep some peppermint tea. Now, a lot of people add just straight black tea or an herbal tea. It releases tannins into the mead to give it a better mouthfeel. But first, let's go ahead and get our cacao nibs toasted. We want them to release just a little bit of oil, not a lot. And other than that, we're not going to do anything else with it. And we're also going to start steeping some tea. What we're doing is we're using bottled water. We're using bottled natural spring water. You can use your regular tap water. However, the additives and everything that are in the water typically lend to a off taste. Now what you see here is you see that the cacao nibs started off really, really light. And they're really starting to get dark really quickly. Constantly have them moving. We want these all evenly toasted. So a nice big round shallow pan is good. And we can always add more cacao to it if we need to. In fact, we probably might even add some more cacao to it when it's in its secondary fermentation. Now when it comes to the tea, We want it to pack a peppermint punch. We want it strong. So I added about 2.5 cups of peppermint tea leaves to the water. We're just going to let this heat up. All you Brits out there, don't get mad. I don't have a tea kettle. This works in a pinch. I think that's nice and good. What do you think, Tiamat?
I think that's looking good.
Let's see if we can get a... Oh, yeah. That's some good cacao right there. And we're going to let the tea leaves sit there and steep for a minute. And we're back. Our cacao has been toasted. Our tea is settling. What we're going to do now is we're really going to get into the meat and potatoes of mead making, which is pure water and pure honey. Not the man-made stuff. You need pure honey. We're going to start off by adding some water to our fermenter. And then we're going to start adding our honey. Now, honey makes all the difference. What we're using is pure organic, raw, and unfiltered honey. If you have access to one, an apiary in your area, somebody who raises bees and raises honey, that is your best bet, because then you know where it comes from. I have seen people make mead with mad honey. I have seen people make mead with hot honey. I have seen people make mead with just about anything you can buy at a Walmart. We're going to let this drain a little bit more. And what we want is we want about 3 pounds of honey per gallon. If you want it a little sweeter, add some extra honey. I would recommend starting at about 2.5 to 3 pounds of honey per gallon, and then go from there, because you can always add honey in the back sweetening process. Or you could just let it go until it's dry. I prefer a nice dry one that will allow me to sweeten when I'm done. And I know what you're saying. Sin City Night, you're not using all the honey. Well, there's a problem with this. It sticks to everything. It's not the magic glue from Dungeons and Dragons where it doesn't stick to the container. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to add some hot water to it to try to get the rest of it out. All right, we got our honey, we got some water in there. We're going to go ahead and give this a nice good stir. We really want that honey incorporated in it. Now I am using what's called a conical fermenter with an easy pour spout. This is actually going to be my primary fermentation. When this gets to about 1.0 or as close as I can get it, if it stalls, then I'm going to take it out. I'm going to put it in a clean glass container. I'm going to clean this out, and then I'm going to put it back in here for a secondary fermentation where I may add more cocoa nibs or even more peppermint tea leaves. If I were you, I would start small. Start 1 gallon. Unless you've been doing this a while like I have. However, even then, a 5-gallon glass carboy filled with honey and water weighs a lot. Trying to get the honey that's at the bottom. All right, we got ourselves a nice liquid going on. Nice amber color. this point, I want to add our cacao nibs, which might be easier with a flexible cutting sheet. All right, so when all else fails and your loving Tiamat throws out your only flexible cutting board, you make do. You adapt. Make sure we get all that cocoa-y goodness in there. Now, you don't want to use anything that has a lot of oil. Oil is going to add a rancidity to the flavor of your mead. Now, I do have another funnel here. And the reason I have another funnel here is actually I'm going to add some of this hot water to get the rest of the honey out of the container. I'm not going to add a lot, just about a cup. And then I'm going to also heat up another container because I have some crystallized honey here that I would like to use and get out of the way. Like I said, you can use tap water, so don't scream at me that I'm using tap water and bottled water. It's my behind the camera people are making fun of me. There we go. Nice and clean and all the honey being used. Let's see if we can get this to decrystallize here. Might have to add a little bit of hot water to it. There we go. Once again, you don't have to use bottled honey. If you can find yourself an apiary in your area to purchase your honey directly from a beekeeper is my recommendation. Unfortunately, where we live at, there is no apiary around us. I'm going to continue to let that go. And I do believe our tea is ready. And yes, that was hot. Very, very hot. Or as our producer behind the camera would scream out, is "I puppy." Speaking of behind the camera, sounded like someone just fed a mug away after midnight back there.
Why did you leave the tea leaves in it?
I let the tea leaves in there because I want them to release more tannins, give it more mouthfeel. And eventually, when we go to bottle, it will be filtered out. All right, some more honey. More crystallized honey. There we go. Honey's supposed to be sticky, not slippery. We're going to continue to stir until all of our honey is gone. This smells delightful. It's definitely going to need some more peppermint and cacao nibs, though. Honey, though, should be your main attraction. You don't want the honey as a secondary flavor. You want the honey as your primary flavor. Using different types of honey as well will give you different flavor notes at the end. whether you're using wildflower or pea flower, or even the weird blue honey that come from the M&M factory. And we're going to top off with water because we don't want a lot of head space. At first, oxygen is your friend. When it comes down, though, towards the end, oxygen is very bad for your mead. The higher the alcohol content, though, the less you have to worry about. Right. I think we're ready to pitch some yeast. Have I forgotten anything? Oh, I did forget one important ingredient. I'm going to move this. I'm going to cover it. I'm going to move this backwards.
And
All right. We only have 3 more ingredients to add. One of them I planned as a special edition. I actually went out and bought some pure vanilla bean. So we're going to split this bean because we really want to open it up. We're going to open it up. We're going to add the bean and all the pods that are on the inside. These are slightly sticky. Now what I want to do is I want all the inside of this. That right there, that's the gold. That's the gold. So we're going to add that to our mixture, not to waste any of it. To keep. There we go. And that bean, we're going to throw that whole bean in there. Once we got our pod nice and cleaned out, we'll throw the other pod in there and scrape some of that bean off the side. Now, our 2 last steps. 1, you got to decide on what kind of yeast you're going to use. We are using Mangrove Jack's mead yeast, M05. And what this is this is a mead yeast that is made specifically for honey. There are so many different types of meads out there. One of the things you don't want to do, don't use bread yeast. You will have a bready, doughy flavor, and it's just not going to jive right. Alcohol tolerance in this is 18%, so I can try to push this to an 18% alcohol. It is a wine, so it is going to be a little high. This is enough for 6 gallons. We are only doing 3. So we're going to use half of what we have here. And we'll store the other half for the next episode on mead making. You can either pitch this dry, like I am doing, or you can warm up some water, pitch the yeast in there, get it jump started. I've never had to do that. And our last ingredient is fermade. Now, what this is this is a yeast nutrient. You want to add it when you start. You want to add it in about 3 days. Every mead I've ever had, I've only had to add it once. I've never really had much of a problem with it. And we're just going to eyeball this for about 3 gallons. Now, there is really cool science behind this. The yeast is going to consume the sugars. It is then going to expel CO2 and alcohol, ethanol, which is what we're looking for. And what we're going to know if the yeast is working the way it's supposed to by adding our airlock to this, filled with a neutral spirit or with water, and after a few days, actually in as little as a day, we might see some already active fermentation going just by view. And we're back with a 24-hour update on our mead situation here. And I am happy to say that our airlock is bubbling just fine. It's fat, it's happy. May have to degas it here shortly. Is exactly what you're looking for right here. You can see that there's actively moving in the mead itself. You can see the tea leaves moving around. You can see some cacao beans floating around in there. More importantly, what we can see here is that the CO2 gas is actually being expelled up through the airlock and out. This is a way to keep insects and dust and other contaminants